Well, offcuts can only mean one thing. We are starting to clad in the gable end finally. We've had a break in the weather, so it's a case of making the most of it while we got the opportunity. Well, nearly dark now, we've finished. There's just a tiny little bit on this end where I just need to make another piece and overlap it so that it sort of finishes off nicely, even though it'll be covered by that bit of capping. So we got it all in. The far end I had to drop down a little bit so it covers this corner as well. The way the angle comes off, and then the square of the fascia. So managed to get that done. Hopefully the sharp edges don't cut through that tarp. I have done it just below, but some of them are a little bit up and downhill and down dale. But that's a good job done. It was starting to show the weathering of the sheet sort of oscillating in the wind and wearing it. There's a big tarpaulin screwed inside, so I can now take that off and use it on my wood store. And that bit's buttoned up. I've got to change a few screws and zip a few more in just to finish it off, but it's in. That's the main bit. So the next section will be cleaning some roofing sheets up and putting one on each side, and then I can get this capping on there. I can get a couple of lengths of that cut and put in, and then start seeing how many sheets I've got and have I got enough to cover the roof as it is, and if I haven't, which side gets all of the sheets, which I think will have to be this side because it's got the long bit coming out. So last job of the day is to take this temporary light that's been up there for, I don't know, before I even built this brewery section. This was the temporary light in here until I obviously built the room and put the proper lights in. So I'm now going to strip this out, and then I can use it in the garage as a temporary light. So we just spent a few hours measuring some sheets, the usable size, because some of them I've got cutouts from when they were round beams, because they're all reused sheets. So we've been jet washing them and cleaning them both sides, making measurements so all of the sheets, the usable size area I can use on them, because some of them will have to be cut and you know, use quarter sheets or third sheets. And then we've just been up top both ends to measure the height of each angle and the length of the roof, which is 8 meters. Obviously we've got on that side 2 angles to work with as well, just to add a bit more fun to the equation. So I've now got to work out what I've got so far and see if that combined with what I haven't gone through yet, once I get that done. And hopefully we'll have enough material to cover the roof, rather than just one side and then have to buy all new to do the other. Because the chances are finding the right profile to match that, not knowing how old this stuff is, but apparently from my quick internet research there's 6,500 different profiles. Yeah. Nice sunny day today, not very warm though, only about 4 or 5 degrees above, as you can see there. Well, you might be able to see, because I can't, because the screen's gone black with the sunlight. I've had to take all the fascia off, because this piece I added in so that the fascia sat square to this drip rail. It sits slightly high, so that when this batten is on, this outer edge sits high, so the sheet would go like that, so there would be a pool of water catching over the long period of time. Obviously it would be an issue. So now I've got to sod about, for want of a better word, take it all off again, run it through the table saw, and take one of the edges off at an angle to be determined, probably by trial and error, then put it all back together again. And it's now coming up for 3 o'clock. I was late out because you know So I was going to get the first sheet in to see what it looked like. So we might or might not get it done by today. Well, I can't quite match either angle of the roof. I think one side was 37 degrees and the other side is 26, and this is the maximum this blade will tilt. So I've got to take the edge off of the batten that sits there, so the profile will run across. This bit doesn't really matter, so the angle's not critical, fortunately. It's just really to get rid of the material here across, so that we have a drop rather than a hip. So I'm just going to cut a couple of test pieces, see where we are, and then run the full length through the saw. As soon as I've had the most important thing of the day, a coffee. Right, so what we've done is now cut this to an angle. So the batten will sit back on this, and it won't be raised up now and have a kick. Hopefully, we're only one way to find out. Right, so the idea now is we're back to where we started 2 and something hours ago. See, before it was going to be up like that, so that one would have been forced down by the screw, would have created a valley down here. So now we've got the correct angle going straight off. Got to make a new piece down the bottom end there, but that doesn't really hold me up, because obviously that bit's going to be left till I start the far end of the roof. So before the light is lost, I will attempt to get one sheet in lined up and marked out. Now it might have to come off because I might have to trim it, because there is a bit of an overhang here, but you've got the step here, so the sheet's going to come out about this far, which would be okay if there was guttering, but I'm not going to put any guttering up this end, I don't think. Originally I think I bought guttering there because I hadn't built the lean-to. Obviously it can discharge on there and go straight off there, so it's just if you were to walk on here and you went and stood on the end, you'd drop it down. But if I'm left with any material, I could put a piece of wood underneath there, because there is a lip. But we'll see. I might have to cut them. Obviously I want to cut to the top, so the ridge cap would cover the cut, and it's not exposed to the rain and elements quite as bad as it would be if there's an exposed metal edge on here. But I'm hoping I can get away with the sheets I've found, for the sake of them being ideally a little bit further over than I would have liked. But if it saves cutting 5 sheets, then I'm willing just to make a mental note not to stand on the edge if I ever go up on the roof. Well, first one on. It's only stitched in with one screw at the minute. It's perpendicular to the ridge corrugated sheeting, so that when the angle goes on, it's not pushing that way. So I'm going to just put a couple in. I think I've got enough time to get another one up. This is 5.1 meters, this span, I believe. So that's 5 sheets. So I'm gonna, weather permitting tomorrow, lay the lot as sort of like a dry fit with just screws holding them at the top, and trim it all up, because obviously the profile of the roof changes here. So I'm going to need some of this stuff I've got to dig out, which I think is down there, to make the new piece there. So I can only come that far. I've got to leave enough room for me to work when I pull the sheets down and start this section. In an ideal world, the whole roof would have been done in one go, but that's just not possible. So we'll get another one up. The sheet will hold it down should there be any wind, and if I can get the 5 along this side, and then I've got 9 sheets, I think this should take 8, so allowing for one to have to be cut and overlap to make the run, because obviously invariably it's not going to be perfect 8 meters top, 8 meters bottom. I can do the other side up to the same, but I think they are too long. I think if I do that same as this, I've been lucky. Actually, they're not overhanging as much as I expected them to. If anything, might be a little bit under. But if I do get weather, rain blowing in underneath, obviously it's button up against the timber, but it could go through there. If I do notice any damp, what I'll do is I've got this flashing. I think I'll have enough left over because I'm going to use this stuff which is salvaged. I've got a load more of that to make the ridge because it's a bigger than the other stuff that's down there by my window frame, which is for trimming these edges. What I could do, if it is an issue, is unbolt this and put one underneath as a closure against this. Hopefully it will be okay, but it's a solution if it is a problem in the future. It would have been nice. There is some kind of old fixing holes about an inch above that bloody batten. If the batten had been an inch higher, they'd fit, but I'm not sodding about moving everything. I've got some grey silicone to fill in any imperfections, and then I've got loads of white left over from when I built my conservatory, so I'll run a seam down here as I lay them sheets, so I'll dry fit tomorrow, and then once they're all trued up I can come along, just lift the sheet, run a bead of sealant down, pop it down, zip up down the valley, and then put some fixings in along the crown and work my way along. And then hopefully that will be this side done tomorrow, and then the day after, as long as the weather's okay, I can do exactly the same on the other side. And we should have this bit stitched up then, and then I can put the cut the eaves flashing, put a ridge in, move the sheet down. I think I'm going to have to rotate the sheet around that way, because as you can see it's not covering there, so I think I'm going to have to pull the sheet round long ways to cover over, and then I'll just have to put a rope through this side and lash it down with a strap over the top and down here. But at the minute the long range forecast doesn't predict any gales. If they do, they're usually into March, April. If we don't get anything by then, we usually got away with it. So far, right, I'll just get this second sheet up, and then I'm going to have to start zipping up, because the sun has passed the yard arm